Most developers write code that works. Very few write code that survives. The difference comes down to a handful of practices almost nobody talks about. And in today's video, we're going to fix that. So let's start. Most developers test what their code is supposed to do. Almost nobody tests what it shouldn't. If your login function accepts an empty string as a valid password, you'd never catch it because you never tried to break it. On screen right now, you can see two test suites side by side. The one on the left only checks the happy path. The one on the right tries empty inputs, nulls, white space. That second one is where the real bugs hide. Your positive tests tell you the code works. Your negative tests tell you it's safe. And once your code survives that, the next question is how you ship it. Most teams finish a feature and push everything live at once. One bad line and the whole product goes down. Feature flags let you merge code that's live but invisible. It's like a simple toggle that controls who sees the new flow. You roll it out to 1% of users, watch it, and if something breaks, you just flip the switch. Now the code behind that flag matters too. It is a rule that almost nobody follows. A function should either orchestrate work or do work. Never both. This rule is rooted in the single responsibility principle. Look at the messy example on screen. One function is hitting the database, sending an email, and running pricing logic all at once. Every change is surgery. Now look at the clean version. 3 calls, each one named like a sentence. You can read it top to bottom and know exactly what's happening without digging into anything. And once your internal code is clean, the question becomes how you expose it. Most APIs are designed from the inside out, built around what's easy for the developer to implement. The caller pays for that. Here's the difference. The first version packs everything into one ugly endpoint with a handful of query parameters. The second breaks it into 2 clean routes that read like plain English. Write the interface you wish existed first, then build what makes it work. But even a clean API can't protect you from the real world. That's where idempotency comes in. It means calling something once or 100 times produces the same result. Here's a simple payment function. Before it does anything, it checks whether this request has already been processed using a key. If it has, it returns the existing result. If not, it runs and stores the result. Stripe and PayPal both use this. If you're handling money or any kind of state mutation, you need it too. Now, what happens when requests pile up faster than your system can process them? Most code bases queue everything until they run out of memory and fall over. Backpressure is the practice of explicitly deciding what happens when you're full. Here's a bounded queue with a max size. When it's full, the system tells the caller to slow down instead of just absorbing the load.
What do you mean by that?
Netflix and Kafka both appliers. Once you're handling load properly,
What do you mean by that?
the next thing to think about is what you're actually storing. Most databases save current state. Event sourcing saves everything that happened to get there. Here's the difference between a users table with a single balance column versus an events log with every deposit, withdrawal, and fee. You can replay any point in time. You get a full audit trail. When something goes wrong, you don't ask what is the state, you ask what happened. And speaking of data, most schema migrations are terrifying. You rename a column, the old app breaks, and now you need a rollback at 3 a.m. Blue-green migrations remove that risk by making every change backwards compatible. Here are the 3 steps. First, you add the new column without touching the old one. Then you deploy and write to both, backfill in old data in the background. Once everything is stable, you drop the old column. At no point is either version of the app broken. All right, last one, and this one goes a little deep. Every time you allocate memory individually, you pay a small tax. The allocator finds the space, tracks it, and eventually frees it. Memory arena allocation groups everything into one big block. Here's a single arena being created, a few objects allocated from it, and then one call to free the whole thing at once. Instead of hundreds of individual frees, you nuke it in one shot. Game engines, compilers, and high-frequency trading systems all use this. And listen, these aren't exotic tricks. They're a gap between code that works and code that survives. But if you want to learn programming in the most efficient way, you need to stop alt-tabbing between the tutorial and your IDE. And thankfully, Scribba, the sponsor of today's video, has fixed that problem for you. Scribba created the world's first interactive tutorials, scrims. Scrims are basically video tutorials where you can pause and edit the code directly inside so you can fiddle with it and understand why the instructor coded things that way. Another cool thing about Scribba is that they offer structured learning paths so you can focus only on what's important for your career, whether you want to become a back-end wizard, an AI megamind, a full-stack Chad, or, God forbid, a front-end dev. Scribba's got you covered. They also offer a ton of projects and courses covering important topics like accessible web design, MCP, and cybersecurity. So what are you waiting for? Go touch some scrims using my link in the description and get 20% off their pro plan. So hey, why not choose the annual plan for even bigger savings?